Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Tough Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In this edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be going through some trending issues in our Liberian political stratosphere. With me to discuss those issues, I have former FIU boss, the only guy that's the CIA for money business in Liberia, Mr. Alex 9 Coffee. Alex, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And
Even though I'm still at work, but I got to do this. So
yes,
every time you see me look on the other side, then you know I'm paying attention to my work.
all right. Thank you for coming and giving us the time. We also have the chief political analyst of Focus on Liberia. He's also an unapologetic sedition, Mr. Wilmot Weti Kuni. He has CDC to his name. Tonight he's in his capacity as FOL chief political analyst. Mr. Kuni, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Uh, Pretty soon we'll be joined by Mrs. Carl Famulek. Carl will be joining us, and also will be joined hopefully by Massa Washington shortly. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. There are some trending issues that we want to discuss here on Focus on Liberia because I always boast of having the best political panelists, the best panelists in internet television for the diaspora community. So whatever the issues are, we have those issues discussed on Tough Talking Thursday to give people the meat of what's going on. Issue number one that we're going to start with is former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf takes issue with the Weah government in two areas. Number one, she mocks the government in the face of the president of the light situation or the unstable power supply at the Roberts International Airport. She also wondered what's up with the governance commission that she thought was viable under her presidency, but where is it now? That's what she's wondering. In today's edition, we also say the former U.S. ambassador to Liberia, Ms. Greensfield, Linda Greensfield, says corruption is Liberia's major problem. Also, the chairman of NDC, Mr. Alaric Tokpa, said the government of Liberia domestic policy is based on stealing and the foreign policy is based on begging. Mr. Tokpa, is this new or just with the Weah government? We'll find out. Also, Vice President Jewel Howard Taylor blames poor parenting for the spike in rape cases. She said if parents are accountable and do their part, the money that the government is spending on sexual and gender-based violence, that can be diverted to do other important things that the country is faced with. Last but not the least, the Unity Party unceremoniously left the CPP, and according to the CPP document, if you leave the CPP, you cannot field a candidate in your own name, that is in the party's name. So with the Unity Party leaving the CPP, will they be able to field a candidate? That clause in their framework document is being disputed. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday. Mr. Coffee, are you ready to talk tough? You're muted.
Yeah, I say I'm ready. That's why I agreed to come on the show.
Mr. Kuni, there's a lot of issues that I threw at you there. Just briefly, can you talk tough on this issue and how tough?
I've always talked tough, and I'm here to talk tough as usual.
Thank you very much. So let's get started. The first issue here is former President Sirleaf taking issue with the Weah government and starting with the RIA. At the funeral service of former President Sawyer, President Sirleaf made a joke, which many people saw as a jibe to the Weah administration, that some of our friends who have come for the funeral, but because our RIA is dark. Mr. Kuni, you were watching. What jumped out of you when you heard this?
Well, you know that some of the benefits of retirement when you are when you are in retirement, I mean, the burden of government is lifted off your shoulders, and so you are free, to make any kind of interjection, with no responsibility. So I hope it was a joke, but if you go beyond a joke, uh, in my opinion, Madam Sirleaf was the one that actually joked with the Governance Commission.
Let's start with the
The Governance
RIA. We'll come to the
Commission.
Governance Commission.
Oh no, I mean the darkness at the RIA cannot really be defended. Is an indefensible thing. There shouldn't be darkness at the RIA, no matter what explanation anybody gave. You see, Dennis, whatever we do, whatever entities we run, there are certain things that has to be in place. And if those things are not in place, then we sometimes question why, in fact, somebody should be leading, that kind of such an agency. You're talking about an international airport. We need a very good runway. We need electricity. We need firefighting equipment. We need a linkage to some hospital facility for air disasters, all of these things. So, I mean, as a management, all these things got to be in our planning. And so going 5 years for these things to still be a problem, especially for an entity that is not only a government entity, but an entity that generates a revenue, I mean, that's something that nobody can defend. I told you here, the first day I arrived to RIA, November 23rd, just as I cleared custom. Clear custom reaching to, clear the COVID people reaching to immigration, the light went off. No matter how you explain it, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. So you cannot justify that. And the thing that take me back is that we wait for the crisis moment for solutions to be identified. The question is, why don't we identify these solutions before we reach, the crisis moment? When there is no electricity, then we know we owe the avarice. When the current go up, then we know we have to spend this much money. I think one of the good thing about management is for you to have good anticipation. You don't have to wait for the crisis to erupt before you decide to find solutions. So, I mean, I can defend what is going on. RIA is I think it's a mark of incompetence. And for those of us that support this government, it's something that make the government look bad. It's something that make the government look bad. So I can defend that. But going to Madam Sirleaf, like I said, she's retired. She has the freedom and the liberty to make statements in retirement. And, she has no responsibility right now of governance. But when it comes to her critique of the Governance Commission, I think the person who actually made mockery of the Governance Commission is Madam Sirleaf. During Madam Sirleaf's administration, she had the best and the brightest at the Government Commission that went to work and develop solid public policy regarding the governance of the country. From decentralization to local government administration, all of these things were developed by the Sawyer-led Governance Commission. But Madam Sirleaf didn't really support these things. As a result, our structure of governance still remains the same. We still have a highly centralized government structure that is based in Monrovia, that is preying on the rest of the country. Like I've always said here, Monrovia becomes the predator to the rest of the country. Monrovia doesn't have any resources, but every resource that is mobilized from the country is used to support politicians in Monrovia. So there was an opportunity during Madam Sirleaf's time for us to break down the governance structure of the country. And the Governance Commission did a very good work. I mean, not talking about the late Dr. Sawyer, but even Weah, people that have expert knowledge in these things. But the professional work of those people, right now, resting somewhere in some archive. So in terms of Margaret of the Government Commission, I think she bear a greater responsibility for that. That does not excuse what the commission should be doing at this time. We think the commission should continue and should continue to advise the government and to move in the area of decentralization and other policy issues that it was considering.
Thank you. Mr. Coffey, you did some work at the RIA. So for those of us who only in connection with the RIA is when we touch down, what really is going on from what you see, from what you know about RIA? We first saw the issue of COVID testing, that they would test, they would take the money even if they are not given the test result. Now we went to light, and then we see what I call an all-star team coming up to say, okay, this is what responsible. So from you having to do some work at the RIA, what do you think is the issue there at the airport?
Thank you, Dennis. But before I come to the RIA, I know you will at the end of the show you will start what you call your tabata.
Yeah.
But I will not wait for the end of the show. I will start with the tabata.
Okay.
I think my tabata of the day, and I know you guys have explained the tabata what it means. Tabata is foolishness, right? So my tabata for the day is, and I'm speaking in context, I wish Ellen would make more statements like that. Because the statement that Ellen made, they were in twofold. It was about the light at the airport and the governance commission. A day or two after, Toga McIntyre becomes head of the governance commission. And I had I had an opportunity to have a conversation with Toga McIntosh during the 2017 election. And we did talk about the governance commission, and there's a model that he described. And I am, based on what I heard from him, I'm happy that he's been placed there by the president. But I only hope that they can give him chance. They can give him the tools and the resources to put in place what he described to me. And I'm sure he described that to a lot of other people. And maybe he described that to the president. Maybe that's the basis on which they appointed him. But I hope they will give him the chance and the tools and the resources to function very well. Now, the problem of Liberia is deep-seated. For me, I see it as beginning from when they pack people they call free slaves, and they didn't emancipate them, they didn't take them through psychosocial counseling, and they took them to the land called Liberia. And for me, without speaking into the details because of time, that is where our problem started. But that led us eventually to the war. And after the war, I believe that Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf had the best opportunity to change Liberia for the better. She started very well in her first 4 years. But after that, without going into the details, a lot of things started crumbling. And President George Weah inherited a lot. And government is continuity. The country is continuing. There got to be a time where somebody has to rise up. A consummate, selfless visionary has to rise up. And for some reason, a lot of us thought that like George Weah embodied the aspiration of the Liberian people. And for that, he will be the Messiah that will lead Liberia out of the situation. But as we're seeing now, It continues to be a blame game and blame game and blame game. The house was not functioning properly. The house was leaking. The toilet, the bathroom, and everything were malfunctioning. Somebody was in the house and they said, no, that person is not good enough to manage this house, but let's bring a different guy. They put you into the house after a period of time of wanting you to fix the house, and you continue to blame the guy who was in the house before. The one side of the house was leaking, but then you say, oh, the other side of the house was leaking whilst you were in the house, and you're still blaming the old guy that was in the house. It's about time we stop the blame game. It's about time we stop the blame game and focus on, delivering the aspiration that the Liberian people embodied in George Weah.
Yeah. So Mr. Coffey, what came out of the airport is the light situation. And former Finance Minister Amara Corner wrote a piece where he said, well, that's just the symptom of the issue. The underlying issue, the person who can fix them is Alex Coffey, because he did it before. What did you do at the RIA? And if you did it right, why is the problem happening again?
So and that's a basis on which I explain what I just explained, because Liberia problem is endemic. Because you will go there, the moment you leave, everything will crumble. Okay? So the app, when they launched what we call the GMAP, the Governance Economic Management Assistance Program, of the international community, to help Liberia after the war, right? During the Judy Bryant time, they crafted this document so that when the next president comes, so that the international community will recruit people internationally to go back to the country to help in different facets of governance, right? The portion that was funded by the US government, which I was recruited part of, the international community, was about fighting corruption, specifically at the state-owned enterprises, and RIA was one. So I was recruited internationally by the US government and sent there. At that time, I was the only Liberian among all the different people from the different countries that were recruited. So our duty was to stop the bleed. Each of us that were put in these different National Port Authority, the Liberia Petroleum Refining Company, I always call it federal, the Forestry Development Authority, and the Rabat International Airport. Of course, I had times going to all the different entities to also do some work there, but I was primarily based at the airport. I also did some work at the Ministry of Finance. We had another group which was funded by the IMF at the Ministry of Finance. We had another group which was funded by the World Bank at the Central Bank, at the Ministry of Lands and Mines. So what we were charged with at that time at the SOE was to stop the bleed. There was a lot of corruption. Monies were going to people's pocket instead of going to the bank account of the company. So one of the things was to stop the bleed, to put systems in place to ensure that the airport become workable again. So what I did, working with the managing director and the staff, I was there. Let me be time sensitive now.
Yeah, please.
Because I heard some other buffoon talking all kinds of things on the live, which is not, he doesn't know the facts. And sometimes you don't know the facts and you're speaking, it sounds crazy. And when you're playing on people's name, then it sounds crazy. But I was there from the airport, at the airport, from April of 2006 to September of 2009. 3 years. So the airport was in red. I mean, the bank account was in negative. They could barely pay the salaries and all that stuff. They could barely meet their expenses. So one of the things we had to do was ensure that all the system was put in place so that the revenue will go to the right place. So we collect the right revenue, put an expenditure process in place so that monies are spent from the voucher system, from the bank account with approvals and all that stuff. We had to train people. But the airport also, as you know it, the big terminal was destroyed by the war, so they were using a small terminal. That need a lot of refurbishment, a lot of work. So we had to raise the money from the revenue of the airport. We didn't take loan from nowhere. We didn't take money from government. We had to raise the money from that. There are a lot of things that went into that. System building, working with people, training, and building relationship and things like that. So we had to do all that. Then we got to a point where Delta needed to come. Then we had to work with, and I credit Mr. Abraham Simmons, who was the MD then. He's a visionary who we saw eye to eye and we worked together. Day and night, we worked together and refurbished. And then when the Federal Aviation Authority came, they did an inspection, they outlined 78 items, mostly security related and technical. That one had nothing to do with finance. But through that, through the finance, you see, that's why CFOs are the easy people to become CEOs, because they understand all the facets of the institution. So we had to work around the clock to make sure that we did all those 17. Those were, now, the airport had, the US government had funded a study, and that study was conducted by Narco Stewards CAT. They came up with two big volumes. Okay, the smaller one, which was, they call it the emergency works. That emergency work meant that they are stopgap measure, they are basic things like quick impact projects, things that we had to put in place to make the airport functional, such that airlines will begin to come in, and because the revenue of the airport depends on the airlines that are coming in. It depends on the passengers that are coming in. The more the airline, the more the passengers, the more the money. All right. So if you can't attract passengers coming, if you can't attract airlines coming, it's going to be a problem. And you can only attract passengers coming when you're attracting more passengers by everything that goes on into your country. For example, when during the early time you had all these army people in, you had the international people coming back and forth. Now, after that period, you expect to have a private sector-led government. All the embassies will be opening. Private sector companies will be coming in. The more the private sector company comes in, the more the tourism flourish, the more people come into the country. The more airline will want to come. Because one of the expensive things for airlines is the airport, the insurance. You know, group insurance is cheaper than when you go in alone. So there are different things. So the airport make money from approach fees. The airport make money from passenger service fee. It make money from the time you spend on the ground and all that stuff. All right. So then they have another document.
So for 30 seconds, just wind that down so I can.
Which is the higher volume. The higher volume was the one over the 25 years period now to develop the airport city, the rear airport, now to build a new terminal, to build a parallel runway, to build an airport city and all that stuff. Like when you go to Accra, Ghana, you have the entire airport city. So that was it. What we managed to achieve whilst I was there was the emergency works. We did all of the emergency work complete. All right. And I was able to get, the money did not come to me, it did not come to the airport. The US government funded that money. We just processed the procurement process. We just did the procurement and the US funded that money. We got $4.5 million from the US, grant money, free money. That money was there. It was $5 million for GMAP controllers. They were able to give me $4.5 million. I was able to lobby with the US people. They gave me $4.5 million. It didn't come to me. It was with the US. They pay directly all the people that won the procurement. It included fire trucks, airport equipment, the ground equipment, a lot of ground equipment. And then we raised money from the airport, the airlines coming in to refurbish the old terminal. We refurbished that. and it became attractive. It became attractive, and planes started coming little by little.
Right.
But when we got finished with our work, politics set in.
Right.
I didn't even complete my term. I have 4 years at the airport. I didn't even complete my term. Mr. Simon had to resign because of course, it seemed interference because, there's a lot of interference with state-owned enterprises.
Right. And hold that thought. I want to bring in Mr. Cooney.
Yeah.
And before that, I want to play because the whole thing going here is this thing about the airport. We had the issue before. Nothing happened until President Sirleaf made that statement, and then people started doing something. One of those was we had the ministers talking about it. I'll play a clip, and most of the time, what we hear is Sirleaf had the time to fix it, and she didn't fix it. In fact, she had 55 million and didn't do it. I mean, this problem and almost everything we hear that President Sirleaf should have done it. She had the money, she had the goodwill, there was on mail and everything else, and she didn't do it. So let's take a listen to Minister Samuel Tuey.
The real issue is resolving the structural problems that the airport has had. So it's a kind of blessing in disguise that the incident happened for the government to take a more holistic look at the challenges of the port. So as you said, there are components that, different parts of the port, the navigational system. I think the navigation system we're running, they say it's been how many years?
The transmitter has been at the airport for over 23 years.
Over 23 years.
And
and so, and the total cost for repairing that system could run anywhere from 4.5 to 5 million. This is not something that we budgeted for. The airport does not have the capacity to generate that money and pay for that. We've been running on an old system. So with this incident, we say, look, just look at the whole lanyard, the whole gamut, and let's bring it to the attention of the president and the national legislature that this is the cost to take the airport from where it is today to where we want it to be. So the navigational system, the solar system, they got something called the apron, which is like the you gotta explain it. It's like the runway that is not for air landing, for plane landing. It's the cement, the parking where the airplane is supposed to park. The fire equipment, all it's below standard right now. And I think I'm hearing yesterday when we went, she said 50 years, I don't know, since 25, 30 years. Those things were put there before the war. The apron has not been touched, and now it's dilapidated. So Ministry of Public Works doing some analysis to see how we can repair all of that.
Mr. Cooney, what are the ministers doing there? and they say, you closing you putting the fence after the Grand Hall finish destroying the. So you got the Minister of Finance, you have the Justice Minister, State for Presidential Affairs, Information Minister, all are talking about the airport. What they got to do with airport?
Well, to be honest with you, that's the way things are done in Liberia. People got to gather in the public to show seriousness, in my mind, maybe in their mind, to the problem. There is a story that I'm familiar with where a deputy police director went to the Freeport. A deputy director of police, not ordinary police officer, went to the Freeport in sleeping suit, responding to some incident at the Freeport. And the only goal is to just show how in her mind that when she appeared that way, the people will say, wow, the director is really hardworking. All of the things the ministers are talking, Dennis, I want to believe these are the things that go to the assessment of an entity when you take it over.
Yeah.
These are the things that go to the assessment of an entity when you take it over. When they appoint you to any office, you will do an assessment of that office and know the current standing of the office before you begin to administer or before you begin to execute your functions, so that to hear that this is blessing in disguise because the president was arriving and there is no light at the airport. And that is the time now that we see this thing. And like I said, the entire incident at the airport cannot be defended by anybody. Cannot be defended by anybody. We support the government. I'm the loudest supporter of this government on this platform. I've advocated that this government will win the election in the first round, but that requires work. It is not a wishful dream. It's not thinking that, something will happen. Competence will have to be on display so that the things that we have to do for the Liberian people can be done. So that the Liberian people can see that in us and say, you know what? We need to give this government another chance. We can't wait when things happen and we say, okay, this is the solution. Yes, we know resources are scarce. That's what governance is. Resources are scarce, and it is your responsibility to make the necessary choices that are needed, get a good sense of what our priorities are. We've been running all around here with this 200-year welcome to Liberia and see the description that high officials of government are giving our international airport. So sometimes we gotta be, what is our priority as a country? What do we prioritize? So this is not really a hard moment for the government. It's not a hard moment at all. And
coming from a CDC paper. I said, coming from a CDC paper.
No, the issue of the airport is not a hard moment. I think the government recognized that. The fact that you see that the long list of ministers that went there, I think they recognize that it is not a hard moment for the government. So I hope that they will do what they say they will do and that this issue will be resolved, because the safety and security of the Liberian people, is at risk. I mean, you can't say, well, because the runway level on, so they let go or in a terminal, anything. No, that's something. These things don't happen to international airports. All of our officials of government, they've traveled from country to country. They never encounter these things. So we shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't accept it. I mean, before, look, I think we reach a point where people need to be held responsible for what they do. Then there's the other day again, our government, we faced an international embarrassment at the conference center. ECOWAS people having meeting, current go off. People got stuck in the elevator. No one bear any responsibility for that. Nothing. The incident just went on like that as if to say nothing happened. I think this is about time that this government step up to holding people accountable. We all know the current situation in our country. If you have an international event, I think there should be backup plan for the supply of electricity at that venue. You don't bring the country to that kind of international embarrassment and somebody explaining and say, oh, we want to go buy gas for the generator, but we put a thing there. The people need to be held accountable. If you don't hold people accountable, then people will not perform. My little who want work that I'm doing here, there's a certain report I have to submit by 10:30 every morning. If I don't submit that report, somebody is calling me. But these things happen. Major international scenario right there. Nobody, whether they're the planners of the conference, nobody is held responsible. Foreigners get stuck in our elevator because somebody who's supposed to buy the generator or didn't buy it or something. So if this prophecy of the one-round victory will have to come true, I'm appealing to my government to begin to put their A game on and begin to hold people accountable. We need to search the globe for our best and our brightest, our most competent to lead the effort of this government as we approach the elections.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dennis, let me come in here. And my big brother Wilmot is right for a lot of things he said, right? And even besides the airport, that is the general problem that we have in our country. It can be with any state-owned enterprise, right? The airport, coming back to the airport, The problem is twofold. Now, I was about to conclude when you move on. When we left, when Simmons left, when I left, the problem that's what we're saying, when you leave an organization, government is continuity. And as Wilma said, you need to put the right people in place. So when you don't have that political will to do the right thing, to practice good governance, to promote good governance, to uphold the rule of law, and to fight corruption, you will have these kind of things that are happening. So by the time we left from the airport, one of the things that happened, all of a sudden, 125 persons were employed about a few months after we left. Now, we got to a point where this big report, the one for the 25 year, and it was divided into timelines, 6 months, 1 year, what you do in 6 months, what you do in 1 year, what you do in 2 years, what you do then. It started going to a 5-year incremental. And they need a visionary to sit down to start talking to investors. But when you take that booklet and you put it away, and you start playing politics for the airport, and you start putting all kinds of people who, do not have the wherewithal to lead an organization, and we start having all the interference from the executive mansion, then you have the airport crumbling. The airport
when you say the executive mansion, you mean the Ellen executive mansion or the Weah executive mansion?
When you come to Weah, you're still talking before Weah time.
Yeah.
I talk about 2010. All right? Now, I talk about government is continuity, and I talk about country is continuity. All that was done, right or wrong, Weah comes to power. What are you supposed to do? When you put square peg in round hole, what result you expect to get?
Explain that. Who are the square pegs in these round holes?
My friend, I spoke my parable, you got to interpret it. Okay?
We're talking tough here. Don't call names.
Dennis Jar. When you take Dennis Jar, who's supposed to be an FOL radio broadcaster, and you take him to the plumbing work, what do you expect? You can fix a camo?
No.
Or you can do carpenter work. So that is the problem we have. And so I hear the ministers talking. They have a point, and I will cut them a slack on this one. But what were they doing? Should they wait for an incident to happen? Okay, now the incident happened. I hear the minister talking about $23 million and this $1 million. The real work at the airport that's going to develop an airport city has to be revisited. The right people has to be put in place. And that is not just the airport. This is a situation that permeates the entire Liberian governance process as we speak. In the Weah government. So it's not just the airport.
Square pegs in round holes in the Weah government.
Yeah, you can make it your next headline.
Yeah, I like that. And before I go to call, and quickly for 1 minute, we talk about budget, right? So the president, Minister Tua is saying, first, Minister Magay, we have 23 million, and we can do this in 7 months. Minister Tua say, okay, this is the thing. We have to look at the entire airport. And so this means we got to take resources from other places and put it in the airport. So when the people doing this budget, what do they think of? It's a coffee. They did not know that the airport needed this.
I think the minister just, I don't know whether that 23 million or 22 million was informed by a study or what is needed. I don't know. It appears to me from what I heard from him, appears to me that it's a figure that he threw out. And the timeline he's talking about, it appears to me that it's a timeline that he put out there. All right. Because since 2010, a lot of things have happened at the airport. That is why, when monies were taken to build the terminal, I think they should have used that money wisely to do other things, right? Like the apron development. One of the reasons why you don't have the gangway coming to the plane for people to walk in that gangway to go directly in the airport is because of that apron. So they're right that the apron problem had been there. But 5 years now, what had they been doing?
Thank you.
They cut the ribbon to the airport. They took pride in cutting the ribbon and taking ownership for the airport and seeking the glory. So thereafter, you have to go back and now say, okay, what is not in place? What we need to do next? But you left it. Now trouble happening, then you're going back to the 50 million that was not used properly? No. It's time for you to take ownership and face it and make a plan. And, yes, I mean, they're trying to make some effort, but I believe that amount that was thrown out there, it was just thrown out. I don't think it's informed by some kind of real planning process. And they have to do a planning process because fixing that airport is a long drawn process that it's not budget though, because Liberia don't have the budget to fix that airport. It has to be investors has to come in. If not loan, it has to be investors that have to come in. And you need that political will. And you need the right people at the airport.
Thank you.
And for most of the institutions, not all of them, but most of the institutions in Liberia.
Thank you.
You need people with track record.
Thank you. Welcome, Carl, to the show. Carl, we have the issue of the airport, and also President Sirleaf raised another issue with Governance Commission. What I'm hearing from the ministers here talking about the airport is, hey, you should have fixed this. And in fact, you are the person who left this issue with us. I saw some posting where it was posted that, hey, there was this contract signed by the Sirleaf government to bring in solar panel in all the 9 years. Is this problem really a Sirleaf problem? And are they justified by saying President Sirleaf should have done more?
I mean, I'm just embarrassed for Liberia. I'm embarrassed for the fact that you had people who made criticisms for 12 years, but didn't prepare for leadership. They had all the things to say for 12 years and want to now pretend that they didn't know what the situation was. They didn't plan to govern. The other thing is, I mean, I just think that's just embarrassing for any professional person that has a responsibility to continuously blame the people that came before them. That doesn't make any sense. It's like you buy a house, you get you don't get an inspection done, you don't do anything, you just buy the house, and then you start complaining about the previous owner. You own the house, it's your responsibility. You're in charge, take charge. One of the things that is disturbing to me and very, to put things into the true perspective, I want to point something out. The transport minister has been in service since 2016, Samuel, and he's on the board for RIA. He is still the transport minister. He was a transport minister in 2016. He is this transport minister in 2022, longest serving transport minister in the history of the Ministry of Transport. You want to talk about continuation and institutional memory? That's the transport minister. You've got Paula Faraz, who has been the deputy managing director at the airport for more than 8 years, probably closer to like 13 years or something like that. Technical deputy at that airport. You've got a lot of people who are working in the current administration associated with this airport that worked in the past administration. A lot of technocrats, board members, leaders, so it's not like, they took over and not only, the people they brought that are there. That's not the case. They are aware of everything. They don't care, or they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do their jobs, or they're not letting people do their work. I don't know what the reason is, but to say, oh, you left us with this, you know what else she left you with? The transport minister. You know what else she left you with? A lot of technocrats. So you sitting here, you keep these people in their roles and you don't hold them accountable. They had a situation at that airport, just to show you the level of incompetence, failure of leadership. They had a situation at the airport where an employee laid under an airplane, literally holding passengers hostage. We're talking about all of these other things. They held passengers in an airplane hostage over their personal gripe about their pay or whatever concerns about someone taking over. They didn't have the understanding that this is not only dangerous, but it's unlawful. It's a violation of so many international regulations. He didn't get fired. He didn't lose his job. Samuel Tuck comes out there. He thinks that he's like, some battle cry guy under the sycamore tree. Instead of the leadership coming in and being disciplinarians and set an example, say, hey, you cannot do this. In fact, you're going to be prosecuted for doing this. This is not how you express your grievance. So there's impunity on every level. If you cannot hold someone accountable for doing something so irresponsible and dangerous, and you just go there and you lecture, oh, y'all don't do it, I was shocked. How can any airline or any business person take a situation like that seriously? If the government can't even, handle law and order correctly, why would, how is this enticing people to come to Liberia?
Yeah, that was shocking too. Well,
Foolish.
Cole, why is President Sirleaf talking now, especially opening at a program?
I don't know. Maybe she's fed up. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know what's going on in her head. I don't know. I mean, she doesn't. She shouldn't have to talk.
I will follow that question. Fed up at what?
Let me finish my point. She shouldn't have to talk, because I've lived in 3 different countries, and you don't just, let's talk about the United States we're all familiar with. You don't see Barack Obama running his mouth, during the Trump administration, trying to tell people what to do. It's improper protocol, right? Weah is Ellen's president. She's also the former president, and just out of respect for the office, those kinds of conversations should be happening in private, if at all he needs her advice.
Right.
However, it's probably, things are just so blatant. The debacle at the funeral of Dr. Sawyer, them pretending to honor Dr. Sawyer after they destroyed the governance commission. That was one of his greatest heartbreaks, was what they did to the governance commission after he left. And then they all stand there at his funeral and act like it's all good. I think that's why she mentioned it. I'm sure he expressed his grievances to her, or maybe not. Maybe she just observed it on her own because she's intelligent. But you can't be sitting there and well, why does Louise say something? Why isn't everyone saying something? Where are the other people in the country that are supposed to be talking, the ones that are aspiring to leadership? Where are the other people that say they want to be president? Why are they not talking? Madam Sirleaf is not going to be president again. But you've got all these men that say they want to be president, but they have nothing to say.
Mr. Coney, let's conclude on this airport and good governance thing. Why aren't the people talking? Cole is asking. And why is President Sirleaf talking now, especially in the face of the president?
Well, the opposition is preoccupied with their own problem, I guess. I don't know why they're not talking. But as I indicated, the issue of the airport is an issue for all Liberians. The safety and security of travelers passing through the airport, that should concern all Liberians, whether you're running for president or not. And it should not take an incident like the one that we're talking about for the government attention to be drawn to it that way. So I don't know why people are not talking. I mean, I spoke out when I came from Liberia and told you guys that on my arrival, the airport was in darkness. I spoke out. So I don't know why people are not talking.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just joining us, this is Tough Talking Thursday. We are discussing some key issues here. The former President Sirleaf, she's taking issue with the president of the current president, the administration, and say, hey, the good governance, what's up with that? And the airport is dark. Another person taking issue with the current government is the former U.S. ambassador. He said the corruption is just too much. People are taking food from the mouths of babies and women. Also, chairman of NDC, Alaric Toba, said government domestic policy is based on stealing, and foreign policy is based on begging. Mr. Cooney, Mr. Coffee, let's start with the U.S. ambassador. What she's saying, all this thing about corruption. People, it looks like people are fed up because this is becoming a pattern now. First, it was the ambassador talking about the city being filthy. Now, and before that, another person now is the U.S. former ambassador who is working in the Biden's government saying the major problem here is corruption. Have we reached a breaking point here, Mr. Coffee?
Yeah, I mean, the things it continues to pile and pile and pile, and we reach a point, we reach a breakwater, we reach a breaking point. Things start to crumble. The problem of corruption is an old age thing. It is embedded in our governance process, it is embedded in our society, it is embedded in our home. But you know what? It takes the tune at the top. That is why, for me, I support three things: promote good governance, uphold the rule of law, and fight corruption. Corruption is the number one thing that you need to fight in Liberia. When you fight corruption, but it needs that person, that visionary, who, whether it's your sister, whether it's your brother, whether it's your friend, will look in the eye. You did this, you're going to bear the consequences. I'm sorry. Corruption has been going on. Corruption is everywhere, in every country. But
so what makes Weah corruption different?
Well, the first thing is, if you don't practice good governance, if you don't uphold the rule of law, you promote impunity. You promote impunity, that people think that they can do anything and get away. If you can't reshare for your government, if people do things and you can't, get rid of them, then it seems as though it's business as usual. And if people think that they can only sit in the government space by backbiting somebody else or carrying gossip or doing this, then if your only competence is you've done this over these years, or you can clap, whether it's red when it's supposed to be black, you can clap, then it's a problem. Then you promote impunity. And when you promote impunity, people continue to do it. And it didn't start with Georgia government, but it has to stop somewhere. Somebody. And I thought George Weah would have been the person who would have stopped this, because I thought he embodied the aspiration of Liberian people. And corruption is the biggest problem that we have. Corruption is one that putting money in the people's pocket. Like what we did at the airport. We moved the money from the people's pocket and we put it in the bank account. We moved the bank account from negative. The first thing we do in the first 6 months to a year, we brought the balance to 500,000. By the time we're leaving, it was more than $1 million in the account. And that is how you fight corruption, so that the monies can be used to the benefit of the people. The money has to move from the pocket of people. But this thing, spiral of corruption continue from Charlie Quintan, it continues. When will it stop? So no rule of law. Nobody goes to court. Nobody gets asset gets frozen. Nobody asset gets confiscated by the government. We don't build a good case. And if you stand up to fight corruption, then you become enemy of the state.
Become a casualty.
Do you know why I was? It looks like I have a bad luck of being ran away. Because I already run away from the airport because I stood my ground.
Dennis.
And then fast forward, again, I was running away because I stood my ground. Right. So it looks like when you stand up and speak truth to power, then it's a problem.
Right. Carl, before you come in, I have a question for Mr. Cooney. Mr. Cooney, Dave Jai is saying the biggest problem here is not corruption, it's Weah's incompetence. And from where he's coming from, is corruption has been there, even from Ellen time and before that. It is glaring now because, according to Dave, Weah is incompetent. What's your response?
Well, that's the misreading of the problem that faces Liberia. You know, corruption in Liberia is not because of incompetence. Corruption is in Liberia because Liberians have adopted corruption as their way of life, from the ordinary person straight to government. So it's not. You see, sometimes when we attribute everything to this, I don't know what you mean by competence. Maybe I don't know.
So,
but corruption, whether it is the most competent or incompetent, corruption has always been in our country. And we have never developed an effective strategy to fight corruption in the country.
So
even the very little things, the minimum thing that a government had to do to fight corruption, when you suggest it, governments across the spectrum have been unable to do those things.
That's not exactly accurate, though.
Hold on,
well, okay, let me learn my point, and then you can come over with
I can't do this.
For example, Dennis, we have integrity institutions like the General Auditing Commission that audit government officials and lay responsibilities of government funding on those entities. What do we do? What come out of what do we do with the heads of those entities? Nothing. So we go back to the same question of impunity. Nothing. And we Liberians, they've developed the mindset that once you are in government and you don't steal, you're stupid. You're stupid. So all of these things goes to promote corruption in our country. And like Ellie said, we've not had a leader that will stand up to this menace. Everybody talk about corruption and just throw words at it. But in terms of fighting it, no. When you even make suggestions like asset justification, let public officials justify their assets. You have somebody who are working by land before they get into government. Within a space of time, this person has accumulated 3-4 cars. In other countries, you are made to justify those assets. But we don't do none of that in our country. So the more you amass as an individual, whether you're in the public sector, when you leave, nobody asks you any question. So there are some practical steps that can be taken to minimize corruption. You're not going to stop it, but there are some minimal steps you can take. And no government has taken any of those steps.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Call.
I don't know what the basis for your assessment about past governments. I don't know how much you have studied past administrations, their meticulous record keeping, their competence, their extreme competence. This country that we like to lie on called Liberia, where we pretend that since its inception, everyone's been incompetent, it's just a complete falsehood. I mean, the people that preceded us kept meticulous records. The problem isn't the past, it's the present. You can't project the incompetence of today onto the past, or we wouldn't even be sovereign. We wouldn't even have a country. You're sitting here talking about people who kept such meticulous, not only financial records, every meeting of the legislature meticulously documented. You know when that stopped happening? Within our lifetimes. And then you're sitting here talking about time periods. If you go back 100 years, you can read reports. They documented everything they did. These people don't even keep records. And to talk about corruption as if it is not a symptom of a bigger problem, as if it in of itself is the problem, it's too simplistic. The real issue is gross incompetence. These people don't know how to do what they're supposed to do. So it's like, incompetence is a progenitor of corruption. Incompetence gives birth to corruption. You can't maintain systems that are put in place if you're incompetent. So you can design the greatest system ever, but if it's being managed by incompetent people, it's not going to work. So we keep talking about, and I'm just shocked, to sit here with adults, that were born normal days like myself, who are talking about how extremely corrupt it was in the past. It's simply, there's no comparison. We have a country that doesn't even keep records anymore. When I went to the Ministry of Transport, they were barely keeping motor vehicle registration records. Everything was kept on one computer. The filing system, let me tell you guys something. When the Ministry of Transport was in the Parker building, when I took over, and anyone that's watching this that has worked at the Ministry of Transport knows what I'm saying is true. There was a kind of like an attic upstairs on the 3rd floor, like above the 3rd floor, the 4th floor. It's almost like an attic. It was filled with documents, and they were not in boxes even. They weren't even in shelves. They were just on the floor, and there were rats everywhere eating records because people had taken over. And I said, what the heck? Oh, it's been like that since 1980. Since 1980, they just threw the records in there, and literally piles and piles of records. So this is incompetence. This is not because they were trying to steal, because they don't even know how to file. They don't even understand basic alphanumeric filing. One time George Fomble and I had this discussion, and he was talking about, oh, we got to automate and we got to bring automation. You can't automate nonsense. You have to have a system to transfer to automation. When the United States went from paper records to digital records, it's because the paper records were meticulously kept. The digital records only mimic the paper records. So if you don't have a record-keeping system, if you don't even keep records, what are you digitizing? What are you organizing electronically when nothing's organized? And when you do put systems in place and you train people how to do the things that they're supposed to do and follow processes, as soon as you turn your back, they abandon it and revert to what they were doing before because it's too difficult.
So, Carl, are you saying the ambassador is wrong, that the major problem is not corruption?
I'm absolutely saying she's wrong. And you know what? Let me say this, because the ambassador of the United Nations, she worked and lived in Liberia. She knows the degree of incompetence. She can't say that. She can't say that because it would be shocking for her to say the truth. She knows that people mostly don't know what they're doing. She knows that you have, young Scott fellows in their 20s making decisions for government officials because they're too either lazy or incapable of doing what they're supposed to do. She knows that. I worked at that transport ministry, and I will tell you something. The only transport minister that I worked with, and y'all get vexed if you want to, this is the truth, and then we're supposed to talk tough here. Eugene Nugent is the only person that ever opened up a report and read it. As and he actually opened stuff and read it and would discuss it. Say, oh yeah, I understand. He understood. I'm not judging him and saying if he's corrupt or not corrupt. All I'm saying is at least he had the competence to be able to read reports and comprehend them.
You is a consummate communicator. That's what he did.
I mean, I'm just saying he would read the reports and he would understand them. And that is a huge, it should be obvious. I shouldn't have to say that as if it's a compliment, right? But in that environment, it's shocking because that's an environment where the ministers and these people, they don't even read.
Wow.
They don't even write. They don't even read. And so you're given a job to do, a major responsibility. It's much more difficult to head, a transport ministry or an airport in a country like Liberia where you have very low capacity staff. And then the people that they put in charge themselves are either not, look, nobody in Liberia that has an institution should be working less than 60 hours a week because that's what we had to do when we were there. Because that's how much work there is to do. That's how much work there is to do. I see people leaving work at 4:30, 5 o'clock. If you can go to work at 8 or 9 and leave at 4:30 in Liberia, you're not doing your job. You just wearing suit and go sit down in office and let the air conditioner blow you. People have to roll up their sleeves and actually get stuff done in that country. But no, corruption is a symptom of a bigger problem. The largest issue in our country is ineptitude. And then also, one last thing, the government of Liberia has been through a lot of sabotage and intentional exploitation by these same people that are criticizing Liberia today. A lot of the problems that are in that country, were caused by the very people that are criticizing the country. And I'm talking about these donors, the international community. They know how they've manipulated Liberia. And then to sit there and then say, oh, look what's happened to Liberia. You know exactly why Liberia is in the situation it's in. You're the causal factor. You know why the education system in Liberia is broken, because it benefited, during the Cold War to destroy things. So, this whole thing with, oh, the ambassador said this. It is more important for Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, for Tiawan Gunglo, for Alex Cummings, Joseph Boyka, and Nat Barnes. It's more important for them to speak on these issues than it is for us to hear these things coming from people that don't have to live it.
Thank you. Mr. Coffee, let's
Can I just make a quick point?
Yeah, but Kawu, on the other hand,
Can I just make a quick point?
No, let me make a point quick to Kawu. Kawu, you say other people are making a statement. Those people should be making a statement. If the fucking Amanda say and fucking over who finger document and input all day when they're forgetting to do what they're supposed to do, then other people from outside will begin to speak for them. So how about that?
Mr. Coney.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just trying to see what conclusion are we reaching here tonight to say that the root cause of corruption in our country is because of incompetence. I don't know what that means. I mean, when people talk about incompetence, I don't know in what context they speak.
Mr.
Because
Coney,
I can tell you.
Are you sure you don't know what incompetence is? If you don't
No,
know what
I mean, I can't speak. I can't go into people's mind to define what they say, but I can tell you, if the incompetence they're talking about is the incompetence that we all been talking about every day, I can tell you from where I have been professionally as a law enforcement officer, as someone who worked in the highest echelon of law enforcement in Liberia, I have seen the most competent people in Liberia who are rogues, plain rogues. Ain't got nothing to do with competence. Plain rogues, plain thieves. I mean, they're stealing. It's not even sophisticated for how
then
educated
they're not
they are.
competent. If you're a rogue, if you're a rogue and you lack integrity is part of competence.
They're stealing. It's not sophisticated.
I don't know what you call competence, but if you're a rogue, you're not competent.
So to sit here to say that competence is the root cause of corruption in our country, I think it's something that we really laugh at. Corruption has its roots in Liberia. I've seen the most competent engaged in corrupt practices in Liberia, and I've seen people who are not competent engaged in the same corrupt practices in Liberia. I just wanted to make that clarification.
I don't know what he defines as competence, but if a person is corrupt, if a person is not building systems, that person's not competent. I don't know what you consider competence to be.
Well, I'm telling you, there are people who steal whether they're a system or not. And the only reason why they do that is, look, there is a theory of crime. You compare the benefit of the crime against the punishment of the crime. If the benefit outweigh the punishment, you will commit the crime. And unfortunately, in Liberia, the benefit for committing crime always outweigh the punishment. And since the punishment doesn't impact the person, it doesn't matter where you sit. There will always be corruption.
If there was competence, there wouldn't be impunity. If there was competence in government, there wouldn't be impunity. There wouldn't be impunity.
Come to them bills in comparison. It ain't got nothing to do with competence. It ain't got nothing to do with competence.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
You're just anti-education. You're anti people doing things correctly. And let me tell you something.
You fail to accept the fact that educated people are criminals in our country.
Not just being educated makes you competent, right?
No, I'm not saying just. Don't paraphrase.
Right.
I'm not saying just.
So
I'm
that's the
saying
problem.
I have seen situations where educated people are criminals and where those who are not educated are criminals.
I am talking
so the
about
issue is not
competence.
education.
I am talking about competence.
Right.
I'm talking about competence.
Education.
And I don't think you understand what that means.
No, I don't understand your definition of competence.
No, there is. I didn't invent the English language. Competence and education are not necessarily synonymous.
Well, we don't necessarily have to agree to your biases.
It's not a bias. I didn't invent it. I'm speaking a language that I learned like the rest of us. I didn't create these words. I don't have my own definitions. The definitions are there. They're older than us.
All of us learn the languages and we can build our biases in the languages.
Necessarily mean education.
Corruption has nothing to do with competence.
You are wrong,
is a
You're wrong.
in a liberal society. What are you competent on now?
Mr.
You're absolutely wrong. Because part of your training is ethics. Part of your training and becoming competent for a position is understanding ethics, the do's and don'ts of the position. And,
now you're speaking utopian.
No, I'm not speaking utopian. That's the job that I do. If you work somewhere and you don't have to take ethics, if you don't have to take ethics you must be way down there on the totem pole at your job. But anyone in leadership in the United States has to take ethics courses
involved
on an annual basis. No matter what industry no matter what industry you're in. So if you don't know that,
Dennis, you gotta call a cruise here. You gotta call a cruise here.
I would be curious to know what you do at your job if you're not aware of that. Because it doesn't make any sense that you don't know that.
Hold on, Mr. Cooney. Call complete. You have 30 seconds.
All I'm saying is part of being competent is learning. You have to take any leader in any industry in this country has to take ethics and anti-corruption courses usually on an annual basis, sometimes on a biannual basis. If you're in leadership in this country, that's a fact. Even if it's healthcare, if it's finance, no matter what your industry, you must do this. Education, unless you're way down there on the totem pole, but usually there's annual instruction in that. That's part of competence.
Thank you,
it's this grilling of what to do and what not to do.
Thank you.
But if your assessment were to be true, then there would be no corruption in the system you talk about so much. Because in the very system there is corruption.
Right. All right. Thank you. So let's look at it this way, Mr. Coffey. You will conclude on this. Is Mr. Cooney, why is corruption not punished?
Because that's the nature of our society. Every administration come out the reason why they can't punish corruption. You find other people who will justify that the society is too small, we know one another, so there is no need.
What is responsible for that, for people not punishing corruption?
Huh?
What is responsible for that? Because
those who are supposed to lead the fight continue to give one excuse for not doing it. And one of the excuses I'm giving you is that people are saying, Liberia, we are too interconnected. Right. If you take this action, you impact other people.
Thank you. Mr. Coffey, let's conclude on this.
Incompetence.
Mr. Coffey, your last word on the issue of corruption. Mr. Alaric Tukba said the domestic policy of government is based on corruption or stealing, and the foreign policy is based on begging. I mean, is this how it has been all the time, or is it with the current government?
No government is an island. I mean, there's a community of nations. People take loans, and it's not a matter of begging or so. Because if you look back, Ellen, one of the good things she did was had a lot of contacts and built a lot of contacts and drew a lot of money. I mean, I'm just saying that part. So Weah too has international connection, so he's supposed to draw on those international connections to bring more investment to the country. And no government goes without taking loan, but those loans should be used for the proper reasons why they were taken, and then we see the benefit of those loans, and then so we justify paying them back. But coming to the point of corruption, for me, you know, I worked in the government. I work with the government, outside the government, and I work in the government. All right. Competence is a good thing. You need competent people, right? Because even during the Ellen government, when the first 4 years, when she had all the competent people, those competent people who were head of institutions were almost like doing everybody's job because you have all these bunch of people under you. But it is not, yeah, you need competence to do the job, but you also need that political will. Why you think in America, you get to the stop sign, you know nobody looking at you, but you stop before you move because you know the consequence. There was a system put in place that is being upheld. There's a culture of respect for the rule of law. That culture of the rule of law and respect for the rule of law is established because people have been punished over and over. So it's a cultural thing. Now people have developed the fear to break the law because you break the law, you know the consequences. Nobody will come to your door in the United States of America. You will receive a mail or you get a ticket on your car, and if you don't pay that ticket, you know what is going to happen. You know the end result. In the United States of America, they will put charges and fee on it. If you don't pay, they will take it from your tax return. If you don't pay, they will enter your bank account, especially government. They will enter your bank account and take the money from there. So, yes, competence is necessary to lead the way, but that political way. Because if you take somebody who is competent and you put it in a garbage page, if you take him and put it in the dumper, like Labrador people will say, they will put all the mud on him and he will get dirty with the people. Right. But when he decides to stand, he or she decides to stand up, then everybody say, oh, but who or he or she thinks he or she is, right? I'm trying to balance the gender now, so I'm struggling. But let me use he for the two gender, all right? Who you think he is, right? Then he becomes the enemy of the people. Right? Because you're trying to stand up to do the whole thing. Because we have encouraged the culture of impunity. When you do something, you go free. You do something, nothing happens to you. So the culture of not bringing in the rule of or holding the rule of law, the culture of encouraging incompetence, promote corruption. So you can have all
this is also true. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Coffin.
People, when you don't have the tune at the top, when you don't have people being punished, when you don't have people being held to their management contract for heading the institution, you have this problem.
Right. Thank you. We're going to go into our next issue, which is VP Taylor, that's Jewel Howard Taylor, the vice president, blames poor parenting for the spike in rape cases. Madam Taylor has been talking. The last time she was talking, I wanted for us to go for a break, but we're going to play what she said before because that's going to also shed light on what she's saying now. So let's take a listen what she said on the issue of war crimes court, and we'll be right back.
Our country has gone through a very difficult process. There is still much left to be done. Our country is still not reconciled. I do not think a war crimes court for Liberia will be the best thing. We are a very small country made up of less than maybe 4 million persons. And the interrelatedness of the families are so tight. If you drag one person to court, the families that are attached, it will just have a ripple effect. Of course, the war didn't come out of the sky. There were shortfalls in previous governments that created a platform that people felt they had no other option, and it escalated in what we had. And whether you were involved fully in arranging the war, whether you sat on the side and say, hey, I'm not a part of what's going on, we've all played a role somehow. And I think we should just leave it where it is and move forward. How do you ensure that whether you live here or whether you live somewhere else, there's safe drinking water and there's electricity and that there are jobs. I think that's where our energies need to be. It can no longer be about the past. I would hate to see a war crimes code brought to Liberia. It will not reconcile us. It will not bring back the past. It will not pay for the destruction of our nation. And it will definitely not put back the fabric of our country that has been destroyed as a result.
That was Jewel Howard Taylor, our current vice president, also former wife or the ex-wife of Jill President Charles Taylor. Vice President Taylor is in the news again. This time she said co-parenting is responsible for the spike. We can't blame all of this on government. And she doubled down on it when she was criticized and said, look, parents need to be held accountable because if people were watching their children, especially the minor ones, they won't be violated by people. In fact, and so if we did that, the money that we put in SGBV or the sexual and gender-based violence, that money can be taken away and we can do something else. Mr. Coffey, I want you to start with this.
You know,
I was outraged when I heard this, and I don't know how you felt about it.
You know, I like Joel as a person, but I will respectfully disagree with her on this point, on the 2 points about the war crimes and the issue about parents and stuff like that. So let me start with the parenting. Yes, the parent has a responsibility, right, for taking care of their girls and stuff like that. But it's the same thing we're talking about, the culture of impunity. All right, we have all the strong laws. The last time there was a debate about, I listened to the Senate, one of the Senate hearing, and it was Ibrahim Darrell was asking a question. They had the Minister of Gender and those people based on certain things that happened. So the question was, you said we should reform, would you do this? Because anything. The question Darrell Dillon asked was, the law as they are on the books, are they not enough? Eventually they agreed that those law was enough. Then the second question was, then what is wrong with implementing those laws? Even though law is written, but laws will improve as times go by. When things happen, yeah, you make amendments, right? But are we implementing the law as they appear on the books? No. How many times we put people in jail, or we took people to court and put them in jail for rape? So yes, the parents have their duty to take care of their girls, but society and the government has an equal and more responsibility to make sure that we don't encourage impunity so that people can get afraid to do things, right? On the issue of war crime, I mean, you have people who are seasoned war criminals who are leading. What example? Who are in the legislature? What examples are we telling our country? What example are we telling the youth, the people, the generation that is coming up, that you can do something and go free? Why did we have the Sirleaf Code? Why is Mr. Taylor in jail now? Why other people went to jail? Why today they are considering war crimes for Vladimir Putin, right? Because of killing people. So it's never justified. And we should get away from this whole idea about, oh, we have a small society, we all related to each other. And that's the same problem. One of the reasons why we're encouraging corruption. Because if somebody do something, then somebody comes from the church, you go to the pastor, you go to the person that get a president here, or you go to the person that get a justice minister here, and we compromise the case, and it goes nowhere. The culture of impunity continues. So no, I won't agree with I respectfully disagree with Weah Taylor on those 2 points.
Carl, this is VP Jewel Howard Taylor on rape, blaming the victim.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when it gets back to this whole, issue of competence. You are the vice president of a country, you're the most powerful woman in the country. And you don't have the presence of mind to really study what the causal factors of a rape culture are. And you come out and publicly state that it's the parenting of the girls, not of the boys, but the parenting of the victims, not the parenting of the perpetrators. Now, we're raising young men who rape women, young men, old men. There's women with husbands in their homes who rape children and they forgive them and handle it the traditional way. Why isn't she pointing at that? Why isn't she saying, hey, men, stop raping little girls and women and children and, boys? You're talking about the parents of these girls. It's not like, they're being raped by monkeys in the jungle. They're being raped by human beings that have a choice. It's not some instinctive animal that's jumping on these children. These are human beings, that are choosing to violate other human beings and commit acts of violence against them. It is not the fault of the parents of the victims. If you want to blame parents, you blame the parents who are not raising better sons, better boys. What kind of society produces 15, 16-year-old violent rapists who rape babies? I mean, think about this. And this is not only happening in the ghettos of Monrovia, this is happening in the hinterlands, in the interior, where our traditional systems have been broken down. You see when they say, oh, the little girl was raped, you're expecting to see some madman from the bush, and you end up seeing somebody's son, teenage son, coming out, and he's the perpetrator. Rape is an act of violence. It is a crime. No one is responsible for rape except the rapists. Government is responsible for safety and the protection of its citizens. The reason everyone's yelling at the government is because the reason the government exists at all is to ensure safety. Human beings agree to live under systems of government and give up some of their autonomy to their government because they need protection from things like this. And so the fact that, she's the vice president of the country and the responsibility to keep the citizen state is on her shoulders as well. And then she, instead of putting it on herself and the Senate and the House and the appointed officials of the executive branch of government, she's putting it on impoverished parents whose children are raped. Who's responsible for the grown women that get raped?
Exactly. Mr. Cooney, and I hate to say this, but the vice president is consistently saying stupid things. Right.
I won't have you say that,
Dennis.
We disagree with her, but
Dennis.
No, hold on. Let me end my thought, right?
That's Tough Talking Thursday.
Yeah, this is the same vice president. Let us not forget, she's the wife of Charles Taylor, a monster who ran a group of heartless, people of NPFL that live on raping people. And she's the wife. And then when the war was over and we said, let's take these war criminals to court, she said, no, we are tightly, we are related. If you drag one person to court, it's going to have a ripple effect. And one of the effects of the war is rape. And she said, no, we can't blame it on the perpetrators. Rather, it's the parent because you are leaving your child with someone. Well, if we are a tightly niche community, I can leave my daughter with my neighbor. I can leave my daughter with my aunt, right, to take care of. Now she's saying...
Dennis, I'm not cutting you. I'm just putting a point here. Somebody made a point here. Darling would say, so even the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 5-year-old that are raped, what parenting had to do with it?
It said because they live in a statement, she said, sometimes it is their own boyfriend they introduce to the child as uncle.
The 2-year-old child that is raped, or the 3-year-old child that is raped introduced to the boyfriend?
Because they are leaving the 2-year-old child alone, and that's why she's being raped. But
so the rapist isn't responsible. It's the mother who trusted the rapist.
Who is going to the market and leaving the child home. I mean, what thinking is that? She was the same person who said Liberia should be a Christian nation. It should be legislated.
She's the same person that said at our time to eat.
Right, it's our time to eat. When she came to the United States and they said the senators are taking too much money, she said, well, in fact, the money is not enough. Because we have to distribute this money in our constituent. I mean, what kind of woman is this, Mr. Cooney?
She's traumatized.
You expecting for government to pay you to run your campaign?
No,
Yeah.
she said, we said if they get paid, when they go home, people want money from them. And so they need more money as pay so that when they
No,
go
but
home,
then
they can
what
give
I'm
it, they
saying
can
is
give it out.
providing that money to your people in your constituency is a form of campaigning. You want government to pay
Exactly.
you to fund your campaign for you?
Yep,
No.
that's right, Alex.
But that's Jewel Howard Taylor for you, Mr. Cooney.
Look, Dennis, I think the two panelists have sufficiently dealt with the issue. I respectfully disagree with the vice president on this issue. The epidemic of rape in the country cannot be attributed to no kind of parenting skill. I think it goes back to the same discussion we had on corruption. In our country, impunity reigns, and people do these things and get away with it. Look, let me share an experience with a coworker. I mean, just to tell you, in countries where there is no impunity, I had this Liberian friend who was a social worker. And I think by his job classification, they had to provide services to teenagers. And he also was authorized to visit the home of this teenager to make sure the home is okay. And he tells me that on a summer day, he wanted to go and visit our home. And that little teenage girl dressed kind of in a real provocative manner. And he said by the time he opened the door, he saw that lady girl, he ran outside and started to make contact to all the appropriate people, the child advocate, attorney, supervisors, just to remove any doubt that, he initiated some kind of inappropriate contact with that child. And he was telling me, he said, look, Uni, you think I'm really going to jeopardize my liberty, my freedom, my pension, and everything for some kind of lady girl, So if there is that certainty of punishment, if people have that certainty of punishment that, look, if I engage in this behavior, this is what the punishment would be. And when that punishment is carried out, we're not going to have 100% crime-free society. But what we're going to have would be a society where some of these things would be minimized. In our country,
Of course.
it's just the same impunity thing. And then all of these things that people say, oh, the family relationship, some people get raped, and then you find the family going to the people, they say, like, let's compromise the thing, take the case from people.
And Mr. Cooney, when somebody said that family thing, I said, so why can't the issue with when Brownie Samuka case was going, I said, so why if the family go, why they don't compromise it? People only talk about this compromising when it comes to rape. Nobody ever blames it. Well, in the Cummings case, why the family don't talk and people leave it?
Now, when a political family, but
Exactly.
on a serious note, not a political, on a serious note, I disagree with the vice president. Right. Parents are under enormous pressure in Liberia, and to hold them. Maybe she was speaking in a context where maybe everybody gets some kind of responsibility, but still.
No, but Mr. Cooney, somebody made a statement here. What about the father who raped their own daughter? Is that a problem with parenting as well?
So I disagree. So I don't want to belabor this point because I just disagree with the vice president.
Yes,
not in the language you put it, Dennis, that she always staying fleeting. I just disagree.
I mean, she has a pattern of saying, making those kind of statements. And I mean, she's an educated woman. So when she's talking, people really want to listen to her and people respect what she's saying. But if she has a pattern of saying all these things, I mean, let's take some comments here. Let's take some comments, and our viewers are commenting. So let's read some comments.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
James Davis said corruption is in Liberia because there is no punishment, so it is a continual process. Marian Powerhouse said even the house girl steals coal and takes it home. Samba say corruption is a culture in Liberia. The 2 minute comments here we're not going to read. Or Agatha says the government is not corrupt, but rather the so-called expertise who comes and we say they can audit them, most of the donors. Ever say American breastfed Liberian politicians with foreign aid, and now they got addicted to the circle of aid, and it's going to be hard to wean them off it. So we'll continue to ask them for money. Darling say corruption is a way of life. John Hina say your Weah is a complete mistake. We told the Liberians, but they refused to listen. Still on corruption, Johnny Johnson say it is a way of life in Liberia. You have to oil one's palm, not with palm oil in every ministry. The children are learning corruption as a way of conducting business on every level. Central favors.
That person is right.
Incompetence acts reincarnated. A Harvard graduate, master economy, very competent, admitted that her administration was very corrupt. You're talking about Ellen admitting that administration was very corrupt. I don't know if that's accurate. That's what she admitted. Jimmy Eastman said to stop corruption, you have to first implement the rule of law. The second thing required is transparency. Not even the Senate and legislature support transparency. The incompetence just makes corruption easy. That's another.
He's correct.
Agile, we said to move forward, you have to acknowledge the problem. Wellington Weah say you can be competent and still be corrupt. Johnny said Mexico is a failed state. Liberia is not far behind. We don't want to return to war, corruption, but progressive moves save us. So if my Ellen Johnson wants to keep watching, I don't see a problem. Jerry said Dennis is moderating well. Francis Wilson, Cooney doesn't know because he doesn't want to know. He believes in forcing the square pegs into the round hole.
I'm a puppet also.
Oh, we are talking about the square peg.
Darling said Mr. Cooney is gradually drifting away from the CDC way. Mr. Cooney might be cutting ties with CDC, in my opinion. He's telling lots of truth.
Yeah, have a both.
Anytime you say the truth, they say you're against CDC.
Yeah, so says why would do that?
Massa say Weah failed from day one when he refused to declare and publish his assets. If he had done so and mandated his official to follow, that would have reduced corruption. Cole, I didn't know you were also Mommy Esther Tapi.
Was also what?
You are commenting. I saw your comment.
Oh yeah, you didn't read my comment. Read my comment now.
Yeah, I come to it. I disagree with the VP. She thinks parents taking care of their kids will stop rape. What's about children that are raped by their own fathers in their own homes?
Sad.
Mayfi Deco Joe Howard Taylor is a party to the Civil War, which has onward led to the increase in rape. That's why she's speaking in such disgraceful manner. I am looking at one right now, passing in front of my hotel, Grand Hotel Boulevard, and you can tell that she is between 12 to 13. The skirt this little girl is wearing show her entire underclothes.
Yeah,
she's
man.
wearing high heels. So, Varian, please tell us what. So, are you saying she's encouraging rape, or what is it? Cesar Goya said the VP ought to know better. I'm very disappointed. Samuel Galemo, what do you expect the wife of a former rebel leader to say about good moral issues? At a time, all right. Honorable Kamara said Mr. Cooney is a veteran. Mr. Cooney, you get some help here. They've just said the VP also said killing of the 250,000 native was justified because of the killing of the 13 TWP officials. So VP said that too. Agatha Allison, wow, what is wrong with this woman VP? I really don't believe a woman and mother who says such thing. This makes me angry. There was a back to you, Mr. Cooney. With all the comments, there's a call who is also here with us commenting. Very large complex, whether in government or in the corporate sector, need a high degree of skills and competence to be run efficiently. Sadly, government have lacked these attributes all along, and we have ignored this because of our obsession with rooting out corruption. Carl, will you respond to your own comment?
I should respond to my own comment.
No,
so basically, prevention.
Hold on, let me read.
Oh, you're not done. Okay, sorry.
Francis, who took issue with Mr. Coffey for saying that about the free slaves. So I'm looking for that comment that I saw earlier. What a crook maybe. When are you going to take responsibility for your life? Why is everything the settler? You should be embarrassed by such nonsense. There were settlers all over the West Coast. Our settlers put us at the pinnacle of success in Africa. We have sunk down to the gutters, and you still have the gall to be bitching about settlers. Go up and do your job, and you stop the blame game. Mr. Coffey, your response. You said the problem started with the settlers.
Yeah, but Francis didn't understand what I said, and so I said there's a genesis to the problem, and it led to the war, right? The war came and passed, and we had a clean slate. I'm not playing blame games. I laid my comments very carefully. And people have different opinions. I mean, so she's expressing her opinion. So I appreciate her opinion, but
thank you.
We all know, we all read history. We all know what happened with the battle system, the exchange of all that stuff. So we know that. We all know what we read history. We all know what happened to the United States of America during the slave trade. We all know that that slave trade mentality was taken. But all that accumulated and the war happened. So that era ended. Then I came to the Ellen era, right? Then I came to the Weah era. But what is important is there got to be a place where we have that selfless visionary who will lead this country. I gave 2 examples, or I gave 3 examples. Ghana, Rwanda, Singapore. I lived and worked in Ghana. I was there in the 90s when Roland was president. I saw what Roland did. Ghana came with all these problems from Nkrumah time, overthrow Nkrumah with all these different successive military rule. And Ghanaians were fleeing their country. They became economic refugees all over the place. But when Roland came, he put a stop to all that. Like him or hate him, he started a whole process that got Ghana to where it is today. Paul Kagame, with the genocide, the same years we fought the war, Paul Kagame came and started a country. Like him or hating, the same way Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. So what I was saying is, I was laying the basis. I'm not playing blame games.
All right.
It has to start somewhere. And I thought that Weah embodied the aspiration of the Liberian people, and he would have been a desire to start the new Liberia.
Thank you. And
I said that Ellen had the best opportunity to move Liberia forward, but at some point in her, towards the end of her first term, in her second term, we missed that opportunity. And I thought that Weah embodied that.
Thank you.
That situation to move the country forward, but here we are. So we need that visionary, that selfless visionary to move this country forward. That's all I was saying. I'm not playing blame games.
Thank you. Vivian Powell, who talked about a girl on a Boulevard Hotel, said, no, Dennis, she's not encouraging rape, but she should be home sleeping or studying her lesson. This thing I'm seeing in this country with these little girls on the street scares the heck out of me. So those are the comments. Let's take a 1 minute each. Our time is fast spent to Alex already responded to one comment. Mr. Cooney, your response 1 minute to the comments.
Well, to those who sometimes when I say something, they say, "Oh, I'm a CDC fanatic," and then when I say something, they say I'm drifting away from the CDC. My position on this platform is that yes, I support the CDC, but I'm a Liberian first. And there are certain things that concern Liberia that I don't play partisanship. I don't bring partisanship to those issues. And one of those issues is the condition of our airport. It should not be a partisan issue. Liberians are entitled to a functional airport, an airport that is safe and secure. And so sometimes it is within that context that I make some of the statements I make.
Thank you. They tell you being born again.
I want my one round to come, so I'm challenging my people to be more competent, to do most things, put their A game on so that the one round can be assured.
Thank you. Call 1 minute. Your response to the comments.
I mean, the comments are pretty much which comments?
Comment.
I mean, basically, all I'm saying is, we're talking about, Mr. Coffey's talking about Rwanda. These countries had a very high education rate. The population's far more educated, better skilled labor force, much more competent people, technocrats than we have. And that's really all that drives good governance is people knowing what to do, people understanding the roles and responsibilities and having the ability to do it. Prevention, detection, and correction is how you fix corruption. Prevention, detection, and correction. Prevention is the problem in Liberia. And prevention comes in, training, constant training. Every industry, like I said, in this country, in the United States, there's constant either annual or biannual reminder courses that people have to take, courses on anti-corruption, courses on, ethics and things like that. We don't do that in Liberia. Even these things are built into the curriculum as young as preschool to teach people, what is the correct thing to do in a situation when given a choice? How do you make good choices? How do you do the right thing? We don't have those things built into our curriculum. And so prevention is part of education, it's part of building the competence you need. And then, detection, if you have competent people, they'll better be able to detect issues by, having systems to be able to prevent these things. And then the correction that comes in afterwards. Whenever you see lapses, you have competent people that are able to correct it. But you cannot fix corruption with incompetence. It's not possible.
Thank you. Even in my kids' school, they have a prize for caught doing the right thing.
Exactly.
So they reward that.
Right.
At this time, we're going to go to our Tabata session after. Every week, there's some Tabata foolishness nonsense going on somewhere in Liberia, and we at Focus on Liberia, we don't shy away from calling it out. This time, we're going to start with Mr. Coffey. Mr. Coffey, you said you were going to give your Tabata from the beginning, but I didn't hear it.
So we didn't hear no Tabata, so you will get two
this
Tabata
is your
here
opportunity
today.
now. What's your Tabata of the week?
Well, my Tabata of the week is the fact that Ellen, in Liberia, we say she throw talk, right? Ellen throw talk about the Governance Commission that led to Weah appointing Weah McIntosh. So the Tabata is, must Ellen throw talk before you bring a very competent person like Weah McIntosh? That's my
Call.
Tabata of the week.
Call.
Because some of them must throw talk. Must Ellen throw talk about the airport being dark, preventing some of the people she talked to that were supposed to come before the ministers go to the airport to have press conference to address the issue. That's the Tabata of the week.
And we are encouraging our viewers, please write your Tabata of the week, and we're going to Call, what's your Tabata of the week?
There's so many. The fresh one on my mind is the Inspector General, the Minister of Commerce, and we talk about competence again. Josephine Davies, bless her heart. She's so hardworking and so energetic, but she just doesn't know her job. She just doesn't understand. And so this is what I'm saying. You know, I don't, think it's fair to throw someone into a responsibility that they're not capable of handling and ridiculing them. But boy, my biggest tabata was her explaining how much rice came in the country, and she said that they brought 20 metric tons, which was 9 million bags of rice. 900,000 to 1 million bags of rice. And she said it with a straight face. And this is just we got our children watching it.
Yeah,
it was bad. I mean, but she always does stuff like this. And it's like, going to the place, not knowing the difference between manufacturing date and expiration date. So I will throw the rice away. And, there's a science to this kind of thing. And you have to, my biggest habitat is ineptitude on display, public display. And so it's unfortunate because they want to do it, but they just can't. They don't have the skills.
Yeah. Mr. Kuni, your Tabata of the week.
My Tabata going to my favorite place, the Unity Party. The Unity Party.
Y'all good now.
Having entered into a marriage, a political marriage, and the marriage is still valid, legally valid. The Unity Party want to go marry another woman.
You didn't go to court to divorce.
Yeah, the divorce is not even complete. It's not according to the procedure for divorce. They now go into the election commission that they want to marry another woman, and the commission say, you can't do that. You're still married. You have to divorce before you play the next game. So it looked like the Unity Party may not feel a candidate in the local election because they are still legally in a collaboration with the CPP.
So what's the
for
Tabata?
You to still be married and want to go marry another woman, I think a complete Tabata.
Thank you. My Tabata of the week is still the Vice President's statement of holding parents responsible for the spike in rape cases. That, I believe, is complete foolishness. She shouldn't be saying that. And our viewers too are weighing in on the Tabata. Let's start this first one from Francis.
I like Murphy. Okay, let's start with the one.
Francis Wilson said, my Tabata is with the two most prolific saints in Labrador today, ever since 1847, and the settlers.
The settler business I mentioned in reality church, Francis Wilson.
Right. Francis is Evan Morris. My Tabata is a lack of regulation on rice importers. Why do we have foreigners controlling our staple food? That is a national security risk. Well, if you're importing your staple food, why you can grow your staple food anyway? Makari Manu said, my Tabata is Minister McGill asking the marketeer, hey, you say no rice?
Did he say that?
Darling Warwood, my Tabata of the week is $23 million electricity budget for RRA. How did TUE come up with that figure? I heard that figure from McGill, not TUE. Still more Tabata coming here. Midfield Deco, my Tabata of the week is President Weah telling media that even when I leave power, I will still use my contact to make sure that there is rice.
That's the Tabata that I like.
He said when he leaves, there will still be rice in the country. Henrietta Morgan said, my Tabata, the airport is dark under this regime. Where is the cake plane? Yeah, that's true.
The cake plea.
That's a
Kamara
good
said
one.
Matabata is CDC, LEC, da Ellen, RIA, da Ellen, Rice, da Ellen, no donation, da Ellen.
Everything that
Everything,
Ellen.
everything blame on Ellen. That's the Tabata.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes to end. Let's go around the room and get your closing comment. Oh, one more Tabata here. Sise Goya say his Tabata is the Eula Gate. Sise, what does that mean?
I forgot about that one too.
You
That's
know
a
you
good
like
one.
it now.
I'm
You
putting
like
my
me.
money in that one there.
Cole, let's get your closing comments. And we want to thank all of you for coming always and being the best. I was telling somebody, I said, FOL is the biggest platform. They say, how? I said, but how many platforms have like 10 different networks? We have the History Channel, the Literary Hour, Tough Talking, the Roundtable Africa. You have the Marketplace that and all these things. So if you get 2-bedroom house, you put it on top of the hill, and you have 5-bedroom house down, because plenty of people saying the 2-bedroom it may be big.
It's not even a bedroom house.
You get matchmaking.
It's just a palava hut.
I know. Esther Tapi Mo say, my Tabata is the SG should use the same energy he's using on Mr. Cummings' case to also prosecute rape cases. So the SG is not doing that. Tabata.
Or murder cases.
Say, my Tabata is UP hasn't paid their CPP due for 3 years.
Y'all see my party.
I think Kuni sent that person text.
Don't mind.
Kuni.
All right, so what's your closing comment? Let's use 29
Yeah,
seconds.
my closing comment is that we have to invest in human capital development. At the end of the day, the citizens of the country, we're no, ineptitude and competence can be fixed with training, with education, capacity building. We need to build our people, and our people will build the institutions that we need. But if you build the institutions and you don't build the people, there will be nobody to run them correctly. So we have to focus on human capital development, from early childhood education to retraining adults. I really believe that we have the potential. We have everything we need to be successful. We just need to make sure that we invest resources into developing the citizens and bringing them up to speed, bringing them up to what they need to do to carry Liberia forward.
Right. I don't know if this is Tabata too, because Emre Nicole said Cole will pay the UP back pay for the.
That's right, Emmerich. I will pay it. Y'all get off my party. You need to have some very, very successful members. We're not hungry.
Mr. Coffee, your closing comment.
Yeah, my closing comment, and I always say that there are 3 things that are needed in Liberia: good governance, the promotion of good governance, the upholding of the rule of law, and the fighting of corruption. And those things can be, and then the rest can follow. I mean, there's electricity, there's health, there's education, the rest can follow. But if you don't do these 3 things, now, in order to do those 3 things, it needs political will. To get political will, you need a visionary leader. And that's where I would disagree respectfully with Cole. Liberia is not lacking competence. It's not lacking people who can do the job. It is about the person, that leader, that visionary leader, putting the right people to the right places, ensuring that there is good governance, ensuring that the rule of law is held, ensuring that corruption is minimized to the bare minimum of the country.
And
Madam Ellen, in her first, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, in her first 4 years, she paraded the best and the brightest. But after that, we started spiraling down. Mr. Weah came and has not fielded most of his competent people who will lead this country forward. So it depends on the leader, the vision of the leader, and the
Right.
willpower to do the right thing.
Mr. Coffee, 5 years ago, you thought George Weah was that visionary leader. Is that correct?
I thought that he embodied the aspiration of Liberian people, but I believe that he needed help.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, the competent people that he had to put in place, he did not put them in place.
Mr. Kune, your closing comments, sir.
Just 2 quick points. You know, those of us that support the CDC, support George Weah, you know, we also, you know, cherish his football accomplishment. And I just want to appeal to the president using his own football language. The game is now in the second half. You know, we are entering crucial times. And the game is on the line. And we need to put our best out there. We can no longer encourage a situation where people are performing below expectation. People need to be held accountable for what they do. And if they fail to perform, they need to be held accountable for us to cross the finish line. That's my appeal I'm going to make tonight. And the second thing I want to say in closing is that, look, there is no way that we would dispute that competence matter in our country. Everybody like, you know, competence people to lead. But again, the issue in our country is not just competence. It has to do with character. The issue of corruption has to do with character. It has to do with integrity. We can get all the competence people. If they don't have character, if they don't have integrity, corruption will still thrive. Thank you.
Because if they don't have character, if they don't have integrity, then they are not competent. But let's keep that for another day. This Saturday, Focus on Liberia is making its debut on Prime FM in Monrovia. That's Saturday, April 9 at 4 p.m. But before that, we're going to have our entire FOL Marketplace crew will be live. Will be interviewed by Mr. Anthony Sear, and we're going to be discussing state-owned enterprises, their role in today's Liberia. One of those state-owned enterprises is the RIA, what it's supposed to be doing. Or we always supposed to be crawling to government to say...
That's social men you got on the panel, Dennis?
Yeah, the women are not coming, and so we can't help it.
Call Masa, call someone to be a big you. That's not right.
Yeah, Masa should have been here tonight. She's no call, no show. So what do we do in that situation?
I'm talking about that other, anyway, we'll talk off air. I don't think we have that many panelists and not one woman.
Yeah, we encourage our women, you know, to step forward, but we got to keep moving, you know. We got to keep moving, and we're going to work with what we have, but we encourage our women. Please open your phone line. I'm going to be reaching out to have more women in the panel. All right, on that note, we want to conclude our show tonight, but we always end with the song that says, we are all Liberians. No matter what, we are all Liberians, and I believe every Liberian is working for that. People may be competent, other people incompetent, and whether you believe that corruption is the result of incompetence or education and competence are synonymous, whatever you believe, we are all Liberians. Let's do our best to move our country forward, man. We've been stuck in neutral for so long. Good night and have a blessed night. Bye-bye now.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.